The evening began like any other in the glitzy world of late-night television. Inside the studio in Los Angeles, cameras rolled, lights glared, and the audience buzzed with anticipation. The host, Greg Williams, was a veteran comedian known for his razor-sharp wit and relentless skewering of public figures. Tonight, the audience was primed for another round of biting commentary and irreverent humor. Greg's monologue began with a barrage of jabs at politicians, celebrities, and the trending news of the day. The crowd roared with laughter as his jokes landed one by one. But then, he paused, his smile twisting into something sharper. "And speaking of the Trump family," Greg began, his voice laced with mockery. "Looks like Barron Trump's been keeping busy. You know, folks, they say he's quiet because he's planning his takeover, probably building a Lego wall in the West Wing right now." The studio audience erupted into a mix of nervous laughter and uneasy chuckles. Some members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their smiles faltering. The joke was quick, cutting, and aimed at the youngest member of the Trump family, a teenager who had largely stayed out of the public eye. The segment moved on, but the ripple effects were already in motion. By the next morning, the clip had gone viral. Social media platforms exploded as the joke ignited a cultural firestorm. Hashtags like "Not Protect Barron" and "Not Free Speech" trended simultaneously, polarizing the online community. Memes, tweets, and opinion posts flooded timelines as supporters of the Trump family and defenders of Greg Williams clashed. On one side, critics of the joke labeled it cruel and unnecessary. "Children are off limits," one viral post declared, accompanied by a photo of a young Barron Trump during his father's presidency. "This isn't comedy, it's bullying." On the other side, Greg's fans and free speech advocates defended the joke as harmless satire. "Public figures and their families are fair game," argued a prominent comedian on Twitter. "If you can't handle a joke, don't live in the spotlight." News outlets seized on the controversy, dissecting the incident from every angle. Panel discussions debated the ethics of targeting minors, while op-eds delved into the broader implications for comedy and public discourse. Late-night television had always thrived on boundary-pushing humor, but this time, the line seemed dangerously blurred. In Palm Beach, Florida, Melania Trump sat in the living room of her luxurious estate, scrolling through her phone. The video of Greg Williams's joke played on the screen, and her expression darkened with every second. Barron, now 17, had spent most of his life shielded from the media's relentless glare. Melania had always been fiercely protective of her son, ensuring he lived as normal a life as possible despite the chaos surrounding their family. This joke, however, felt like a direct attack on her role as a mother. "Barron," she called softly, glancing toward the staircase. Her son appeared moments later, his tall frame silhouetted against the light. His face was calm, but she could see the hurt in his eyes. "I saw it," he said before she could speak. "It's fine, Mom. I don't care." But Melania knew better. "You shouldn't have to deal with this," she said, her voice firm. "You didn't ask for this life, and you're not a punchline." Barron shrugged, retreating to his room. Melania stared after him, her heart heavy with frustration and determination. She had endured years of criticism and ridicule as a public figure, but this was different. This was personal. By midday, Melania was on the phone with her closest advisors. "We need a statement," she said, pacing her office. "This cannot go unanswered." Her team crafted a measured response, denouncing the joke as inappropriate and harmful. The statement emphasized Barron's right to privacy and dignity, a reminder that children of public figures should be off limits. Within hours, the statement was released, sparking even more debate. Supporters praised Melania for taking a stand, while critics accused her of overreacting. Late-night hosts and comedians doubled down, defending Greg Williams and framing the backlash as an attack on free speech. As the backlash continued to grow, Melania knew words alone wouldn't be enough. That evening, as she sat in her study reviewing the latest headlines, an idea took shape in her mind. She picked up the phone and called one of the nation's top defamation attorneys, a formidable litigator named Claire Jensen. "I want to file a lawsuit," Melania said, her voice steady. This isn't just about Barron. It's about setting a precedent. The legal team began preparing the case immediately. They compiled evidence, including the viral clip and screenshots of social media reactions. The lawsuit would allege defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress, targeting both Greg Williams and the network that aired his show. News of the lawsuit broke the following morning, sending shockwaves through the media. Headlines proclaimed, "Melania Trump takes on late-night comedy," and "Battle over free speech erupts in courtroom." The lawsuit became a cultural flashpoint, reigniting debates over the boundaries of humor and the responsibilities of public figures. Meanwhile, Barron retreated further into the background. Friends close to the family described him as a quiet teenager, deeply affected by the sudden spotlight. He avoided social media and declined invitations to events, preferring the solitude of his room. "He's handling it as best he can," Melania confided to Claire during one of their strategy meetings. "But he shouldn't have to handle it at all." Claire nodded. "We'll make sure they understand that." The lawsuit was officially underway, and the media frenzy only intensified. Claire Jensen, renowned for her tenacity in high-profile cases, became the face of Melania Trump's legal team. Her reputation alone sent ripples through the entertainment industry. Claire was known for her ability to dismantle even the most formidable defenses, and Greg Williams's camp knew they were in for a fight. Melania's legal team wasted no time. In the first round of filings, they outlined their claims: defamation, emotional distress, and a breach of ethical boundaries in comedy. The lawsuit targeted both Greg Williams and his network, citing a pattern of irresponsible behavior and negligence. Within days, the legal documents were public, fueling even more debates across the nation. Greg Williams, however, was not one to back down. In a segment on his show, he addressed the lawsuit directly. Standing before his audience, he delivered a fiery monologue defending his right to free speech. "If we can't joke about the people in power," he said, pacing the stage, "what's left?" Comedy has always been about challenging the status quo, and this is no different. The audience erupted in applause, but the cracks in his confidence were beginning to show. Behind the scenes, network executives were growing nervous. Sponsors had started to pull their ads, unwilling to be associated with the controversy. Ratings for the show were slipping, and whispers of executive meetings about Williams's future grew louder. Just as the lawsuit seemed to be settling into a predictable rhythm, a bombshell dropped. A former employee of the network, William Carter, came forward with evidence that would shift the trajectory of the case. Carter, a production assistant who had worked closely with the show's team, contacted Melania's legal team with information that could prove invaluable. Carter's testimony was damning. He provided emails and internal documents that revealed the joke about Barron Trump had been carefully planned, discussed, and approved by senior executives. The correspondence painted a picture of a network willing to exploit controversy for ratings. In one particularly incriminating email, a senior executive wrote, "This will get people talking. Controversy sells." When the evidence was made public, the backlash against the network was immediate. Media outlets ran headlines like, "Behind the Scenes, How the Barron Trump Joke Was Manufactured," and "Network Under Fire for Ethical Violations." The story became less about Greg Williams and more about the toxic culture within the entertainment industry. For Melania and Barron, the revelations were both a vindication and a source of renewed scrutiny. Barron, already a private teenager, found himself the subject of even more attention. Paparazzi staked out their home, and every move he made was dissected in the tabloids. "How much longer will this go on?" Barron asked his mother one evening, his voice tinged with frustration. Melania placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "As long as it takes for them to understand that what they did was wrong," she said. "This isn't just about you, Barron. It's about every child who has been dragged into the spotlight unfairly." Meanwhile, Greg Williams faced his own struggles. Colleagues distanced themselves, and his once loyal fan base began to fracture. The show's ratings continued to plummet, and rumors swirled that his contract might not be renewed. For the first time in his career, Greg seemed uncertain, his trademark confidence replaced by a defensive bitterness. As the trial date approached, both sides doubled down on their preparations. Claire Jensen's team meticulously built their case, using Carter's testimony and the leaked documents as their cornerstone. They also planned to call witnesses who could testify to the broader impact of the joke, including educators and child psychologists who would highlight the consequences of public ridicule on young minds. Greg Williams' defense team, however, was equally determined. They framed the lawsuit as a direct attack on the First Amendment, arguing that the joke, while provocative, fell squarely within the bounds of protected speech. They also sought to portray Melania as a public figure using her son's name to further her own agenda, a narrative they hoped would sway the jury. Outside the courtroom, the case continued to polarize the nation. Supporters of Melania's stance organized rallies advocating for accountability in media. Parents shared stories of their own children's struggles with bullying, drawing parallels to Barron's experience. On the other side, comedians and free speech advocates held events defending Greg Williams. "Comedy is supposed to make us uncomfortable," one prominent comedian declared during a televised panel discussion. "It's not always pretty, but it's necessary." The case became a lightning rod for larger cultural debates. Universities hosted forums on the ethics of satire, while online communities erupted into heated arguments. The nation's divisions seemed to deepen with every new development. As the trial drew nearer, a new piece of evidence emerged that threatened to reshape the entire case. Another whistleblower, this time a current network employee, provided additional documents suggesting that the network had intentionally targeted Barron Trump to provoke a reaction from Melania and the public. One email read, "If we can push her to respond, it'll dominate the news cycle for weeks." The revelation sent shockwaves through the media. Critics of the network called for an overhaul of its leadership, while even some of Greg Williams' staunchest defenders began to waver. When the trial finally began, it was a media spectacle. Journalists packed the courtroom, and live coverage dominated news channels. The prosecution opened with a powerful argument, emphasizing the calculated nature of the joke and its impact on Barron Trump. Claire Jensen called William Carter to the stand, and his testimony proved devastating. He detailed the behind-the-scenes discussions that led to the joke, painting a picture of a network driven by profit at any cost. The leaked emails were displayed on screens in the courtroom, their contents leaving little room for doubt. Greg Williams took the stand in his own defense, delivering an impassioned plea about the importance of free speech. "Comedy isn't supposed to be safe," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. "It's supposed to challenge us, to make us think." But under cross-examination, Claire Jensen dismantled his arguments, highlighting the deliberate nature of the joke and the harm it had caused. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Greg Williams was found liable for defamation, and the network was ordered to pay significant damages for its role in fostering a toxic culture. The judge emphasized that the ruling was not an attack on free speech, but a recognition that humor must have boundaries when it comes to protecting children. The verdict sent ripples through the entertainment industry. Sponsors reconsidered their relationships with controversial shows, and networks implemented stricter guidelines for their content. The case became a watershed moment, prompting a national conversation about the responsibilities of public figures and media organizations. In the months that followed the verdict, the case continued to resonate across the nation. For Melania and Barron, life began to settle into a new rhythm, though the scars from the ordeal remained. Melania focused on her philanthropic initiatives, using her platform to advocate for children's rights and online safety, issues she now felt even more passionately about. Barron returned to a quieter life, far removed from the media spotlight. Friends and family noticed a new sense of resilience in him, shaped by the experience of enduring public scrutiny and emerging stronger. The entertainment industry, however, was not so quick to recover. The fallout from the trial led to an overhaul of content review processes across major networks. Executives, wary of public backlash, implemented stricter guidelines for comedy programming. Shows that thrived on provocative humor were forced to rethink their approach, focusing on material that challenged societal norms without crossing into personal attacks. Many comedians began to reflect on their craft, reconsidering the ethical boundaries of their jokes. Some adapted, finding creative ways to provoke thought without demeaning individuals, while others resisted, claiming that comedy's edge was being dulled by societal sensitivities. Late-night talk shows saw a decline in ratings as audiences grew weary of controversy-driven content. Networks scrambled to adapt, emphasizing programs that celebrated unity and empathy rather than division. The case sparked nationwide conversations about the power of words and the balance between free speech and accountability. Universities introduced courses on the ethics of comedy and media, using the trial as a case study. Social media platforms were flooded with discussions about the responsibilities of public figures and the impact of their actions on individuals and society. Parents across the country found inspiration in Melania's resolve, sharing their own stories of standing up for their children in the face of adversity. One mother's viral post summed up the sentiment: "If someone with Melania Trump's platform can fight for her child's dignity, so can we." For Greg Williams, the fallout was severe. Sponsors withdrew their support, his network severed ties, and his once popular show was canceled. Though he attempted to rebrand himself as a champion of free speech, the damage to his reputation proved insurmountable. Once a celebrated figure in comedy, Greg found himself ostracized from the very industry he had helped define. As the dust settled, the trial was remembered not just for its verdict, but for the broader cultural shift it inspired. It became a reminder that while free speech is a fundamental right, it comes with responsibilities. The case emphasized the importance of empathy and accountability, showing that even in an age of sensationalism, dignity and respect must not be sacrificed for entertainment. For Melania, the victory was bittersweet. In a final statement to the press, she reflected on the lessons of the trial. "This was never about silencing anyone," she said. "It was about reminding the world that our words have power, and with that power comes responsibility. Let us use it wisely." Her words echoed long after the cameras stopped rolling, a testament to the enduring impact of a mother's fight for her son's dignity. The trial's influence extended far beyond the courtroom. Comedians found new ways to innovate, blending humor with compassion. Media outlets adopted stricter standards, prioritizing integrity over sensationalism. And for audiences, the case served as a wake-up call about the content they consumed and the values they upheld. As the nation moved forward, the story of Melania and Barron Trump's fight became a cultural milestone, a reminder that even in the most polarized times, change is possible when individuals stand up for what is right.